Hello friends, and welcome to the Hanged Man in the Moon. If this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you for coming. I'm pleased to meet you. If you've been here before, thank you for returning. I'm truly honored. Friends, if you are a returning visitor, you surely know that this is my series in which I use tarot and oracle cards to help me explore topics related to living the intentional life. And for the last few videos, I've been using the same spread. It's a spread that was inspired to me by both the Ace of Cups from the Tarot of the Holy Light by the brilliant Payne-towler, and by the Tree of Life, which comes to us through ancient Hebrew Jewish mysticism. And so before we jump into this spread, and it's a doozy, it's a big, powerful, meaningful spread, let me ask you a question. What do you think of resistance? I mean, what does resistance mean to you? Now, I'm not talking about electrical resistance, the kind of resistance we find in resistors in our circuits, for example. Nor am I talking about political resistance or other kinds of resistance like the French resistance in World War II. Not that kind of resistance. We're talking about personal, individual resistance. Is it something we want? I think we generally say that it is something we don't particularly want. Resistance is our working against our own interests in a way. And many of us use a lot of our energy to resist what we think is coming towards us. Yeah, whether we're aware of it or not, resistance is part of our lives. But we also know that when we want to live intentional lives, we want to open ourselves as much as possible to take advantage of that power, the powerful energy of intention which carries us forward. Whether we're resisting it or not, it's going to carry us forward. But we can open to it and have better access to it, or we can resist and cut ourselves off to a great portion. Not entirely, but quite a bit. So, except for the most enlightened of us, we all carry a bit of resistance. And this week's tarot and oracle spread is, I think, asking us to consider resistance in our lives. So friends, we're going to take a look at the spread. Here it is, right now. Yes, that is a big spread. And it looks bigger because we're looking at a very vertically oriented spread on a horizontally oriented screen, right? So we can't really see the cards up close and personal right yet, but I'm going to break this spread down into bits. And as usual, well, it's usual now, I'm going to split this video into two sections. Now, the first section will be the uppermost triangle of the Tree of Life. The second video will be the second or the middle triangle, and then we'll take a break, and then we'll come back and we'll look at the third downward facing triangle, and then we'll read the entire spread as a unity. Yeah, we'll look at the pillars, the mother and father pillar, and then we'll read the spread as the lightning path coming down from Kether all the way down to Malkuth. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you may want to go take a look at the video I did, which explains the spread and shows the spread used with just one deck all at once. So I'll put a card up here for you to hop over and take a look at that video if you haven't seen that video or don't really understand what I was just talking about. Yeah, so maybe you want to go look at that and then come back. And here we are. So this spread, again, we just saw the whole thing. Now you'll notice at the top, did you see at the top? We had the King of Wands. And before we get into that upper triangle, the supernal triangle, I want us to try and remember the last few spreads, if we can. Yeah? The first spread I did with this spread, the first layout I did with this spread, had at the top in Kether the Two of Wands. Last week we had the Ace of Wands in reverse. And this week we have the King of Wands in reverse. So for 3 weeks straight, we've had wands in that top spot. And that's very interesting to me. That's very interesting to me for several reasons. One of them being the elements. Now, I don't know if you know this, but in the concept of the tree of life as it relates to the power of the divine manifesting into the material realm, there's not just one tree. We can actually think of 4 different trees. Yeah, and there are different names for those trees, but instead of just tossing vocabulary at you, let me just break it down into there is a tree for each of the 4 Western elements. Now, Asian elements, there are 5, and they're a little bit different, but for the Western elements, we have fire, water, air, earth, right? So there are different trees for each one of those elements, landing at the bottom with earth. And so the last sephira of the last tree would be the earth sephira of the earth tree, which would be the most tangibly manifest of them all, right? The top one, at least the way I learned it, was fire. And that kether, the first, would be fire as well. And we'd go from fire down to water, down to air, down to earth. Now, there are other people who give them different orders, and some people might start with air. We almost always all end up with earth at the end. But the first 3, some people have different orders. But for me, the first sephira of the first tree starts with fire. And the whole first tree is fire. And the first tree and the second tree, fire and water, they can line up differently according to the tradition that you learn from. Some of them have the final sephira, Malkut, lining up with the first sephira of the next tree, which would be Kether. Like, they would touch like this. Some traditions say that the 6th sephira, Tipre, matches with the next Kether below, so that the trees line up a little bit like this. So for me, it goes with Tipreth. So we'd go down from, now let me show it to you this way. We'd start here. We'd start here with Kether, and we'd go down to Tipreth. And at Tipreth, right below Tipreth, there would be the Kether for the water element. And then at Tipreth, for the water tree, we would match up with Kether for the air tree. Does that make sense? Now, all of that explanation is not all that critical, except to say that for me, the first sephira of the first tree is always fire. And so that's why it's very interesting that for the last 3 weeks, we've had a fire card in that sephira. Yeah, and then we work our way down into Malkut. Malkut would be earth. So, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. We're moving into the first triangle, the supernal triangle. So let me show you a close-up image of that, and we'll break it down. Here we go. That was the supernal triangle. And the supernal triangle begins at the top with Kether, which we've been just talking about. Yeah, goes from Kether to Chokmah to Binah. And yes, there was another card beneath, which is Da'at. And we're not going to focus on that card right now. We'll look at that card in part 2, when we read the lightning path from the top at Kether down to Malkut, and we pass through Da'at, which is the void. It's the void of the unknown. It's the sephira, the missing spot, where there used to be a sephira there, but when the tree fell, it shifted down and is where Tipreth is, yeah, leaving a void. And that void, again, we'll look at in part 2. For right now, for this video, we're going to only read Kether, Chokmah, and Binah. So, here we go. We start off with Kether, the crown. And we had the King of Wands, the 9 of Discs, and the 7 of Wands, all in reverse. So now do you understand why I was asking about resistance? Now, yes, there are different ways of reading reversed cards. They don't have to mean resistance. Yeah, they could mean other things. They could be internal events rather than external events. They could be perhaps weaker energy or perhaps trying too hard in a specific area. But for this particular reading, my sense is that these three cards, all in reverse, are pointing to a kind of resistance. And I don't think they're trying to say you should resist, but rather they're trying to make us aware of a resistance that exists and perhaps a way through or around or past it for this whole spread. So that's the way we're going to look at these cards this time. And again, we start at the top with Kether, and we have the King of Wands in reverse. Now, what is Kether? Kether is the crown, right? It's the most hidden of things. It's above the mind's comprehension. Yeah, it's beyond our ability to really know anything about it. It's the primal stirrings inside of the Ein Sof, the arousal of desire to begin creation. It's not the desire. It's the arousal of desire. It's that, last time I called it a pre-conscious itch to start doing something. Yeah. Have you ever noticed your body starting to do something like this and realize, yeah, I've got an itch. Yeah, it's that pre-conscious itch to begin doing things that we can't be aware of it yet. It's the potential for content, not the content yet. There's no content, but there's a potential for content. It's that, again, that pre-conscious, not even a state yet. It can't even be a state yet. That pre-consciousness of something about to be something. Yeah? And in that spot, we got the King of Wands reversed. Now, let me show you the King of Wands. It's a beautiful card. The figure is a little bit, it's a strangely shaped human, right? We might think of the King of Wands as having a little bit of elephantism, I think is what it's called, right? Where the body becomes too large, perhaps even for its bone structure. Yeah? And the King of Wands, you'll notice, what do we have? We got the radiance around the king's head. The king is holding this huge old stick in his left hand, or right? I think it's his left hand. No, it's his right hand. Yeah, the king is holding the stick in his right hand. There's the moon down at the bottom. There are flames around. Beautiful card. Well, we got this in reverse, right? Reverse. So the King of Wands, you'll notice at the bottom, points to Leo, which is the domicile of the sun. Perfect fire card, right? From which these fixed fire's vital attributes enter our world. Yeah, fixed fire is coming into our world through this. But this time, it's in reverse. There's this fixed fire used. We're not resisting the fixed fire, but I think this fixed fire is used to resist. Now, it's not flowing freely. It's not moving into our tree with the power of creation. There's something a little off here that this card is wanting to point out to us. And this card in reverse might be telling us that we're not yet aware of it, but we may be enduring pain for our nature. We may be suffering for who we are being right now. Yeah, our hugeness, our terminal uniqueness, according to the guidebook. Yeah, there's too much of a good thing here that we're not. Why is it too much of a good thing? Yeah, why is our nature causing pain? Why do we think of it as hugeness? It's because it's not flowing. Now, our nature is not flowing. Our power is not flowing, and so it's blowing us up in a sense. Not blowing us up like, at least not yet, I hope, but blowing us up like making us larger. Yeah. We don't get or want much downtime. right now, maybe. Have you noticed that for yourself? Or are there times when you do notice that for yourself, that we don't really look for or get much time to just relax? And so we're constantly pushing ourselves, whether we're aware of it or not. And if we do suddenly find ourselves with a little bit of free time, we start getting antsy with that, like I said, that precognizant itch to do something. The power of our personality is a force to be reckoned with. Whoever we are, you, me, our friends, our relatives, the people we don't like, are all, whether we know it or not, are forces to be reckoned with. In both a good way and sometimes a less creative way. And right now, there's that less creativity, that reduction of creativity that we're experiencing. And we may not be fully aware of. We aren't fully aware of it yet. Yeah? We do prefer the grand work. We prefer the grand gestures. We prefer working without inhibitions or intrusions. And we don't like it when people come into our space and start pointing to things and asking questions about why are you doing that? What are you doing? Isn't there a better, you know what I'm talking about? Yeah? Sometimes we are overachievers, especially when we think our overachievement will be noticed, with this card in reversed. So there are a couple of things for us to think about. Yeah? Is our power building up without a good creative outlet? Are we keeping ourselves busy to look like we are achievers, like we're doing a good job? We're keeping ourselves going, not because really we're inspired to keep going, but because we either can't stop or we think that other people will notice how hard we're working, how much we're doing, how quickly we're going, and we'll get those accolades and those trophies for doing the stuff. These are potentials that we are right now not fully aware of. That's where we're beginning this spread. But it's not a curse. It's not a it's not a premonition. It's not a prophecy of doom. It's just there's something here that we're not completely aware of, and it lies in this realm. It lies in the non-flowing of energy, so there's this buildup, like water retention, only power retention. Or we are doing stuff either to get noticed or because we just can't stop. And maybe we're not aware of that yet. And so where do we move from here? We move into Binah. Binah, which is the top of, I'm sorry, not Binah, Chokmah. We move into Chokmah, which is the top of the father pillar. This is where our wisdom is. Yeah? We move from the unknowable into wisdom, which is a little amorphous. Yeah? It's the top of the pillar of mercy. It's the first tangible thing that the human mind can grasp. Not the human body, but the human mind can begin to grasp, but not like this kind of grasping, but rather can feel, can sense. We can just begin to sense here. It's yang energy. Yeah, it's the outward moving energy, the all-father, the top of the father pillar. It's the purest manifestation of energy saying, let there be light. Yeah, it was that in Kether we had that itch to say the words. Here's where the words are said, but there's no light yet, right? There's no light yet, but there's that statement of let there be light before the light is created. That's here. It's that boundless impulse of creation. There is no form yet. There are no restrictions. There's no differentiation. It's just this boundless impulse of creation. The breath of power of God, the pneuma, the spirit, the intuitive insight of the soul, still unable to be grasped like this, but able to be sensed, right? That's where Binah is. So what is that stuff that we can sense it now, and it's powerful and it's active, but it doesn't have form yet. And there we have the 9 of discs reversed. Now here we have this 9. Let me show it to you upright. Beautiful, beautiful card. We've got the lion down there. Do you see him? You've got the raptor bird above, ready to take full flight. You see this, the neck of the bird is stretched up, the beak is open in what looks like a cry to me, like that cry before liftoff. We see the discs around them, right? And we also see a lot of vegetation. We see a lot of life on the ground, the sun radiating right behind the head of this beautiful bird. And at the bottom we see Virgo and Mercury, right? Because the 9 of discs points to the Virgo decadent of Virgo. That's the first decadent of Virgo. And its subruler Mercury, from which the mutable aspect of mutable earth vital attributes enter our world. Yeah, the mutable aspect of mutable earth's vital attributes are entering our world through this card and entering the flow of energy and power and spirit through the tree of life. But again, this is reversed. And because it's reversed, instead of only having the planet Mercury in its domicile Virgo, we also have Mercury in its other domicile, Gemini here, which as a reverse card makes things a little bit what, bouncy off the wallsy, yeah, a little bit uncontained, a little bit undirected. And what do we get here? We get insecurity and guilt when things seem too secure and too stable. There's a fear of perhaps judgment for the stuff that we've got. And when we think of the Rider-Waite Smith, the picture drawn by Pamela Coleman Smith with Arthur Waite, the woman standing in the garden, this luxurious garden with a falcon on her hand, and she's got this beautiful gown, and I think there are grapes. There's all of this stuff. There's luxury. She's comfortable in her surroundings, and perhaps she has created the comfort, the luxury of her surroundings, and she's more than satisfied. She is fulfilled, right? Upright. Now, and here we have this card reversed, similar to that. There might be a little bit of guilt about that. Yeah, the Christian guilt for having too much or feeling too comfortable and not suffering enough. You know? Which kind of makes sense flowing from this, that we might start also feel like, well, we got to keep going, we got to keep busy, because if we don't, we're not proving our worthiness for the stuff that we've got, right? We could be or on the other hand, we could be wasting our power and our vitality and our time with wealth and leisure and, for want of a better word, decadence, yeah? Wine, women, song, men, non-gendered people, whatever, yeah? Could be enjoying the sensual pleasures a little bit too much. And because we're doing that, we lack focus. Our wits are used as weapons, yeah? We either lack the focus of, like, Mercury and Gemini, or we do get our focus, but that focus becomes a little dangerous. Now, we use that focus against other people. It could be codependence as well, yeah? Pouring out our resources and vital and energies in order to benefit the people around us, yeah? The leader, the people we have attached ourselves to and find that we gain identity from. Now, we gain identity from a person or a leader or a group, and so we enter into a codependent relationship where we pour all of our energy and resources into that person because that person is the one we identify with. Yeah? There could be that. So this is where our power can be dissipated in several different ways. Again, by either enjoying too much or feeling guilty about the stuff that we have, or by pouring out stuff to another because we're projecting, we've identified with that other being or group of beings. Like in a cult. Not saying that because you're watching this, I'm saying that you are in a cult, but that's one way of imagining that those resources and the vital energies of self pouring out into another because we identify with that other or that group of others. And so we move now into Bina. Now remember, this is the pillar of mercy. How is this a merciful reading? Well, it's merciful because I think this supernal triangle is pointing out things that we might want to consider and take care of in some way or another, right? This is showing us the wound for us to be able to heal before it becomes something that we will need triage and emergency care for. So, the next card in Bina, in the top of the mother pillar. Here we have Bina, and this is the card, the Seven of Wands reverse. The Seven of Wands has been showing up for me a little more frequently than I would otherwise like. It's not a bad card. There are no bad cards. It's not a bad card. Let me show it to you upright. But it's a challenging card, certainly. But before we talk about the card, let's think about Bina. What is that? Bina is understanding. This understanding that flows from wisdom. There's more of it becomes a little bit more, not concrete, but more tangible in Bina. Bina is also the mother. It's the yin energy, the energy in Korean. In Korean, it's yang. In Chinese, it's yin-yang, right? Yang is the active, yin, or in Korean, is the receptive, the open, perhaps the dark, the container. So here we have yin energy, the womb of creation, the womb which gives shape to the creation. Yeah, it receives that amorphous spirit from a chokmah, and here in the womb it begins to give it form. It gives it a bit of a container. It receives the energy and applies a stabilization and a form to it. There's also an intuitive understanding of contemplation here in this Sephirah. It could also be considered like a hall of mirrors. Now you might be thinking, what the heck? How did you get from womb to hall of mirrors? Well, there's the containing idea, but there's also a multiplication function to Bina. Now, the spirit or the light or the energy from Chokmah enters Bina, and have you seen lasers or lights that hit a series of mirrors, how it splits up and becomes more diverse and becomes more energized? Rather than just a steady beam, one steady beam of light, it starts going all over the place, right? That's something else that happens in Bina. Like a hall of mirrors reflecting the single point of light from Chokmah, increasing and adding vitality and variety. There's also a rational process in this card, the processed wisdom. Wisdom processed into understanding. So we've got that idea of giving shape, adding diversity, and processing into understanding. And so what is helping us do that? Again, we have the Seven of Wands, except in reverse. Let me show it to you upright again. You've got those 7 wands with the fire at the base. We see trees which are growing over a path. Do you see the path on the other side of those wands? So this is a kind of a block in the road. Not an insurmountable block, not a block that we can't get through. There are gaps there. There are ways around, over, under, or through, but it is a blockage. And this again is in reverse. So what do we have here? We've got Aries and, we had Sagittarius and Mars, right? Seven of Wands. It's Sagittarius ruled by Mars, right? And what does that mean? It means that the Seven of Wands points to the Aries decadent of Sagittarius and its subruler Mars, from which these cardinal aspect of mutable fires, vital attributes enter our world. Now, the cardinal aspect of mutable fires aspects are entering our world, are entering the tree of life at this point. And because it's in reverse, instead of being a complement, we have a detriment. We have Jupiter in Gemini here. Because this is I just want to double check, yes, this is the second decadent of Sagittarius. So Sagittarius has a house for Aries, right? And in that house we have Mars. And Mars is beaming through the Aries house of Sagittarius. That moving forward, that looking for ways to clean up things and move into the next, which would be Sagittarius comes to Aquarius, right? No, Capricorn. Sagittarius, moving into Capricorn. Right. Okay, so moving into Capricorn. But there's the cardinal aspect that's still there that wants to push forward. So what do we get here? We've got that idea of wanting to push forward, but we got to clean things up first a little bit. Or a lot. Especially as this card is in reverse. So we may have the short attention span of a Gemini. And we had Gemini just a little bit before, right? We had a Gemini right here as a similar. Mercury was in Gemini here, and here we have Jupiter in Gemini. So we've got that short attention span a little bit emphasized. There are probably a series of false starts, which may be part of the reason that we just keep being busy, because we don't actually get any traction. This card is calling for patience. Time and self-discipline are called for to be able to pass this current obstacle. And there is an obstacle here. And that current obstacle is probably an internal one rather than an external one right now. Because that's where we are in the tree of life. We're still in the pre-manifested space. So the obstacle is an obstacle within, which was pointed out to us by the King of Wands reversed. We find ourselves stuck. We've probably allowed our limiting beliefs to stand in our own way. Which again, like I said, is an internal thing, right? So this card is asking us to beware of our smugness. Gifts or synchronicities don't make us invincible. Things that help us on our path are not signs that we are flawless or that we can't stumble because we're perfect, right? So this card is asking us to seek for real accomplishments that can make a difference in other people's lives as well as our own. Now, be a little bit of a servant of other people. And being the servant of other people can perhaps get us past, around, over, or under that obstacle that we have placed in our own path. That obstacle, which we are sensing here in that King of Wands reversed, which was that our terminal uniqueness. I love that. Our terminal uniqueness. I love it, and I can't say it. Our terminal uniqueness. Our feeling that we gotta keep busy, gotta keep doing stuff, or that we're giving too much away because we have identified with somebody or some group of people. Yeah, which again leads us to our feeling insecure and unstable because of with what we have, or that we are wasting our time with perhaps trying to numb ourselves to how we're feeling by indulging in stuff, in substances, in activities of sensual natures, stuff like that. And so our understanding reveals to us that there is a block here. That's the top of this tree of life. So friends, we're going to skip right now to the second triangle, which is either the ethical or the emotional triangle, the central triangle of the tree of life. Let me show you those three cards now. That was the ethical triangle, or some people call it the emotional triangle. Yeah, that this is pre-thought, but this is the emotional section of the spread of the tree, perhaps because the balancing point ends up being at the heart with Tippereth. So that might be one reason for calling this the emotional triangle or the ethical triangle. And we start at the top right with Chesed, and then we go to Gevra, and then we balance down in the center with, again, Tippereth. And for those spots, yeah, we had the 9 of discs in Chesed, we had the Queen of Cups in Gevra, and then in the center with Tippereth, we had the 8 of Swords. So, now don't freak out. Just in case you haven't been following along with either my deep dive into the Egyptian Tarot or this series since then, in the deck you just saw, and just in case, okay, I didn't say this yet, at the end of this video there will be a short video that will give you the information about these decks. You'll get the names of the decks, you'll get the names of the creators, and then in the description box below there will also be links so you can go check out the decks and perhaps purchase one or all of them. I think they're all in print, at least to my knowledge. They are all in print. You can get all of them if you want. So I don't get any money if you use those links. They're just there for your own ease, for your own simple, your convenience. That's the word, convenience. So yes, again, 9 of discs, Queen of Cups, and 8 of Swords. And the discs in this deck are the air suit. Yes, I said it right. The discs in this deck are the air suit, and the swords are the earth suit. Yeah, cups are water, wands are fire, just like normal. But swords and discs are flipped, are changed in this deck. So that's where we're going to start. We're starting at Hesed. What is Hesed? Hesed is knowledge. It's not knowledge. It's kindness. It's kindness, loving kindness, in fact, between people, devotion to God, God's mercy, the love of God's mercy. It's the first emotive attribute. Another reason why this could be considered the emotional triangle. There's an eager and ardent desire here, either for doing something or to resist something against an object. This is where the archetypal ideas of creation, truth, love, goodness, joy are all here. And this is where the cosmic laws come into being. The laws of peace, fairness, order, well-being are here. So here we have those fundamental truths. And so what is the fundamental truth that we begin with, which is under the supernal triangle? This is where things start to become more real, right? So where we begin with things becoming more real is the 9 of discs. And here's the card. Beautiful card. We notice the attributions here. The 9 of discs points to the Aquarius decanate of Gemini and its subruler Saturn, from which the fixed aspect of mutable air's vital attributes enter our world. The fixed aspect of mutable air. So, mutable air, that would be Gemini, is a little bit fixed. It's a little bit strengthened in a sense, maybe, or focused by Aquarius. And Saturn, the planet of boundaries and rules and regulations, trying to live in Gemini, can either get things together or can be a struggle, right? But we also have the exaltation of Mercury in Virgo here, which is cool. Yeah, Mercury is very well at home in Virgo. That's its domicile. So the exaltation for this card is a really happy thing. Did you also notice those stars? This is Ursa Major, not minor, Ursa Major. Let me show you that constellation right now. So that's Ursa Major, the big bear, right? It's very well known from ancient times. There are some myths around it. One of them centers around Callisto. Do you know Callisto? Callisto was a nymph who swore a vow of chastity to Artemis. Yeah, she swore to Artemis, "I will never sleep with a man." Now, that could mean something entirely different in our modern ideas, but generally that just meant that she was going to be chaste. Yeah, I mean, that was the basic ideas. But what happens, of course, the minute any woman decides she's going to remain a virgin, Zeus gets interested. Zeus falls in love with her and has a son named Arcas. So Callisto has already been banished by Artemis. But Hera gets a little bit pissed off. Hera, Zeus's wife, gets pissed off for, well, Zeus being Zeus, as usual. So she gets her revenge by turning Callisto into a bear, Ursa Major. Her son Arcas sees her, and here's where the stories diverge. One, he tries to kill her, and she runs into the temple of Zeus, Zeus decides to save the day and puts them both up into the sky. Another version is that Zeus immediately intervenes and sends them both up into the sky. Another version is that Artemis turns Castillo into the bear. Instead of Hera, Artemis turns Callisto into the bear. And both mother and son take refuge in the temple of Zeus to hide from a king, because this king wanted to take possession of the bear and the child. So what does Zeus do? Zeus intervenes and, again, puts them up in the sky. In another story of this constellation, there's Ida, who was one of the nymphs who nursed the baby Zeus, who had been taken away from his father because there had been that prophecy that the gods would, what's his name? Kronos's children would kill him. So Kronos decides to eat the children. But to save Zeus, Zeus is taken away and is nursed by both Ida and there's another what do we call them? Nymph, who nurses Zeus, and I've forgotten their name. But anyways, because Zeus was there, Zeus could grow up and eventually kill his father. Prophecy solved. Yeah. So there are those things of either the protection and rearing and nurturing of the weak and in danger, who will eventually become dangerous, or the idea of the mother who has to be saved from her son or saved from somebody else. But this mother who is punished by turning into a bear, by being turned into a bear out of jealousy. The mother who is wounded by jealousy and has to be saved by a higher power from either being killed by her son or by being taken by another powerful being. So that idea of saving and protecting and nurturing and rearing and motherhood are all tied into this Ursa Major constellation. So, I mean, that's a lot to unpack with this Nine of Discs card, which would be a Nine of Swords in another deck, perhaps. So what do we get? We have the idea of change of frame of mind, further education in order to get more money. Mental mental possessions endure longer than physical possessions. Yeah, our thoughts, we keep our thoughts longer than we keep the stuff that we collect. It could be the money that we spend on people. It could also be reasoning, rationality. It could be, but there's a lot to do with money in this card. Even though it's a mind suit, there's a lot to do with money in the guidebooks associated with this deck. Money gained through inventiveness, remuneration based on mental activity, money for mind, money for ideas, money for education. Education for money. Sudden gains in fortune. Common sense to increase our income. So our increase in our wealth, increase in possessions, increase of our stuff because of how clever we are or how inventive we are. That is the beginning of perhaps the path through our resistance. Now we want to use our mind in order to accomplish the things we want to accomplish. We want to study in order to accomplish what we want to accomplish. We want to be reflective. We may want to think our way through whatever we're experiencing right now. And that's the beginning of this emotional triad. And from that spot, we move into the Queen of Cups. This Queen of Cups is lovely. See her sitting there, radiant. I got this deck because I have the out-of-print version of this deck, which was a little difficult to see and is very precious to me, and I don't want to riffle shuffle it. So I got the color version of it, and frankly, when I first saw the color version, I was a little bit dissatisfied, unhappy with it. But the more I use it independent of the out-of-print version, the more I like it. And I really like this card. We see the who looks like Isis sitting on a moon. We've got the constellation in the background, because this Queen of Cups is, of course, associated with Scorpio, which is the domicile of Mars, from which these fixed water vital attributes enter our world. And if you know me, you know that I am Martian. I am Scorpion. I am Scorpion, and so have Mars as the domicile for my ascending sign. And this is in Gevra, right? What is Gevra? Now, Gevra is judgment and limitation. It's the balance to chesed, of loving kindness, our loving kindness and our eager, ardent desire. It's all, in this spread, it's a mental thing. We think our way through to bounty. We study to gain more bounty. And we move here to the paramount of judgment and limitation, strength, the might of God rather than the mercy of God. We have the power to carry out the cosmic order here. We have the putting in motion of ideas that we stand for. The things that we stand, we live according to those. We put them on, we give them feet, which is an interesting statement, because there's also the idea of these not being the feet, but rather the hands. Now, along with Hesed, Gebra are the right and left hands that act together to form reality, like hands molding clay. Now, we have the hands here. It acts in concert with Hesed to, again, form reality, to refine reality as well. Now, we got the raw material from the supernal triangle, which has moved through this bounteous loving kindness of Chesed here to Gevra, where we start giving it form. We start giving it limits. Now, because An ocean is beautiful, but it's big and it can't really hold. I mean, it holds everything, and in the same sense, it doesn't hold anything. It lets everything free, which is good in some cases. But some cases we want to get things formed, stable, concrete, and this is where that starts in the tree of life. So how do we do that? How do we get that mind of chesed into some form? And here it's an emotional formation. But it's interesting because this is a fixed water sign. Now this diamond, the diamond used for laser focus of Scorpio. So we have here ideas and resources. Scorpio is a natural healer. But Scorpio does all that they do with their might, with their power, their emotional power, their fixed emotional power, like my grandmother. Complex personality and varied talents. Yeah, a Scorpio can do a lot of things, has a lot of possible talents, a lot of personality to accomplish and to get people's interest, right? They take an active interest in people and individuals as well. The Scorpios always got their eyes in everybody's business. They can be a little cold. They can be a little calculating. They can look unsympathetic, but they're not unsympathetic. They just look that way because they're so focused. Now, a Cancer, it's like, come here, right? Pisces is, love and light and joy. And Scorpio is like, I see you. Which can be intense and sometimes feel a little bit cold, a little bit too penetrating too. So, and sometimes a Scorpio can be insistent that other people conduct themselves the way the Scorpio thinks it should be done. Again, my grandmother. So there are those ideas here that we want to allow ourselves to take advantage of our diverse talents. We want to allow our complexity to, instead of diffuse focus, add possibility, potential to the things that we're thinking about in the Nine of Discs, in Chesed, with that love and joy of thought. Here we want to, again, slice off the unnecessary, bring the stuff that we want together, like a good Scorpio would do, and then make use of it. And it's not something we're doing alone. We're doing that because we also want to heal others. We want to because we are interested in others. We have our attention on other people and what they're doing, and we're interested, and we want them to do it the right way. Because we love them, but it sometimes seems a little bit different, right? But it's not. It isn't different. It's because we love them. So it's a Martian planet, but sometimes there's a little bit of a flavor of Saturn in Scorpio, if you ask me. So that's what we want to do, to get our crap together from that came to us from Chesed. We want to be our Scorpion selves and be aware that we might come off a little bit cold or a little bit insistent if we go too far. We don't want to go that far. We don't want to go into hyper Scorpion mode. We want to be the gentlest form of Scorpio, I think, that we can be. And so then we move into the center, into Tifreth, which balances both Chesed and Geburah. And this center, Tifreth, which is beauty, it's glory, it unites the two, Chesed and Geburah. It's kindness and strength. It's giving and receiving. There's that harmony, kind of like the 6 of coins in Rider-Waite-Smith, in a Smith-Waite deck. Here, creation flowers. Now we had the the first emotive attributes, the eager, ardent desire, and then we gave it form, and then those two things come together to flower, to blossom into something. The connection, this is also the connection point of all of the Sephirah. All of the Sephirah are connected here to Tiferet, which is another reason why we think of it as the heart, divine connectedness. And it translates force into form when the energy is moving down, and it also translates form into force when the energy moves back up, when we start gazing up towards and moving back towards Kether. So this is the transmutation point of energy to force and force back into energy. We're not at form yet. We haven't reached form. We're at the difference between energy focused into force, into power, into strength. But the strength and power of beauty, of glory. So what is our beauty and glory and that transmutation point between energy and force? It is the Eight of Swords. And remember, the Eight of Swords is an earth card for this deck. And we see that the Eight of Swords is the Capricorn decadent of Virgo and its sub-ruler Saturn, from which the cardinal aspect of mutable Earth's vital attributes enter our world. Yeah? The cardinal aspect of mutable Earth's vital attributes. So again, we got that mutability, but pointed again with the cardinal element. We had that in the we had that where? Where did we have that? We had that, oh yes, in the 9 of discs above. Just a second. I need to look at my cards again. No, we had that in the 7 of Wands, right? We had that in the 7 of Wands. Yeah, now that's the ticket. Yeah, because the 9 was let's see. Virgo ruled by, okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to places that I apparently right now I'm not capable of going. So let's just stay where we are. Yes, here we have the 9 of discs. I'm sorry, no, we have the 8 of swords. See, I just lost my track, right? So here we are, 8 of swords in Tiferet. Beauty, glory. Let's get back on track. Connection from all of the Sephiroth. Everything moves through this one. And again, we had the cardinal aspect of mutable Earth's vital attributes entering our world, entering the tree of life here. And we also have a complement, yeah, because this is the second decadent of this Virgo. We have Mercury in Sagittarius as the complement. Yeah, we got Mercury again. Mercury's back. We had Mercury in Virgo just a little bit ago, natural domicile. Here we have Mercury in Sagittarius. Not the worst match, but not the most natural match, right? So there is a little bit of a struggle here, a struggle to maintain balance because of Mercury and Sagittarius working together. But we also have a constellation here. This constellation is Hercules. Let me show you that constellation right now. That's a big constellation, right? Look at all those stars. I mean, you can see all those stars here. The constellation Hercules is what the Greeks call, now it's not that the Hercules had a different name to the Greeks, but the Greeks called that constellation Engonasin, the kneeling one, Engonasin. The constellation was pointed out by Eratosthenes. Do you remember Eratosthenes? Did you meet him back in high school? Eratosthenes was the Greek mathematician, geographer, poet, astronomer, and music theorist. Now, he's the one who we believe first identified this constellation as Hercules, standing over the dragon that guarded the garden of the Hesperides, the nymphs of evening, and the golden light of sunset. Yeah, These nymphs are the nymphs of both evening and the golden light of sunset. What a romantic image. And who would have thought that those things would have spiritual beings attached to them? Golden light. I'm the nymph of golden light. I'm the nymph of evening. Not the nymph of rivers, the nymph of trees. I'm the nymph of golden light. It's pretty, I think it's funny. I'm sorry. I mean, I can understand nymphs of trees and water, but of golden light? Okay. So we have that. Now, why is that significant? Well, Hercules had 12 trials, had 12 tasks to accomplish, right? This was the 11th task. In the 11th task, Hercules was sent to get one of the apples that grow on the tree that was in the garden of these nymphs. And that garden was guarded by a 100-headed dragon. So Hercules had to kill that dragon in order to get the apple. So that's why this constellation is Hercules standing over the dragon which he slew. There's also a story of Hercules' wife. Now, Hercules' wife, Deianeira, was afraid that Hercules was falling in love with someone else. And so she put a poisoned love potion on his shirt. As good wives would do when they're jealous, right? So Hercules puts on the shirt and it slowly starts to burn him, to burn his flesh. And he realized what was going on. He realized that this burning would never stop. So as a good hero would do, he builds a pyre and he throws himself into the burning fire to kill himself, to get over to stop the pain, we assume. And what happens is, in that fire, the mortal side of Hercules dies and is burned away, and his divine nature is revealed. And that divine nature goes up to Olympus with the gods to join Zeus. And Zeus puts him, as Zeus always does, you go up to visit Zeus, what does Zeus do? He puts you in the sky. So yes, he threw Hercules up into the sky. So that's how Hercules got up there. But the image or the memorial is of Hercules having killed this 100-headed dragon here in this constellation. So we have that idea of accomplishing a great task, of killing an insurmountable foe, and of being tossed up into the sky, as most of the constellations have been. So we have that insurmountable task here. So again, we got that struggle to maintain balance. Frustration results from confining experiences. Yeah, Hercules trying to manage all of those heads coming at him must have been a little bit frustrated, right? So we got that frustration here as well. But also there's an idea of disconnect with coworkers, perhaps fear of failure, loss of prestige. There could be the burdens of added responsibilities, bringing worry, disrupted routines. But there's an upside to this card as well. Now, those limitations bring us strength. Now, that battle with the dragons brought Hercules more strength. Enthusiastic approach severs limitation. Yeah? Our attitude can get us past our own self-imposed limitations. Our lessons can be learned. That's something that is a reminder here. And that positive thinking in the face of adversity will help us overcome. And that's, I think, the portion that this card is pointing us toward in this spread. Not so much the worries or the frustrations or the struggle to maintain ourselves, but rather here in the center, we're reminded that it's our emotional response to what's going on that is going to either bring us to the movement forward, to the learning of lessons, to the breaking through our limitations, to success, or not. So this heart is reminding us of our attitude towards what we are doing. That is where we find our beauty, we find our glory. where our creation will flower with our attitude, or it will die, will wither, depending on our attitude. And the attitude of opening to the experience will also let us have the power of intention to move us forward, right? And that's what we're going to do now with this video. We're going to move forward. So this is the end of part 1. Now I'll have a link up here so you can hop over to part 2 if you want. In just a moment, there will be a short video which will give you the names of the decks and the names of the creators. There will be links below if you want to check out the decks yourself. If you want a private reading from me, we could do a Tree of Life spread, or we could do something simple, a 3-card spread, a Celtic Cross, whatever. We can use a Rider-Waite-Smith deck, we can use one of these Egyptian decks, a continental deck, whatever you want. If you want a reading from me, my email address is below. thehangedmaninthemoon@gmail.com. Send me an email, we'll get you a reading. I swear. So here is the end of part 1. Let's move on to part 2. And until you get there, let me wish you now, as always, love, joy, well-being, and pure awareness. Thank you.